Welcome back to Friday Beyond Spotlights. This is Patrick Tsang. I'm a local Hong Kong businessman, entrepreneur, and philanthropist. On Friday Beyond Spotlights, we invite prominent guests to share their insights into current affairs, business, innovation, and culture. Today, we're very pleased to have with us Winnie Tam. Winnie is a leading lawyer and a leader in public service. She grew up in an environment where Western music and Chinese literature and art were part of her daily life. Among the many roles in public service, past and present, she finds her current chairmanship of the Hong Kong Palace Museum one of the most exciting and challenging. Winnie, welcome to Friday Beyond Spotlights.
Thank you, Patrick. Thank you for having me.
So Winnie, should we start with arts and culture? Arts and culture is a universal language. How does the Hong Kong Palace Museum contribute to telling the world the Hong Kong good stories?
Hong Kong has been given a very special role under the country's 14th five-year plan. We're very excited that Hong Kong has been assigned that particular role, and Hong Kong Palace Museum is apt to make Hong Kong an international cultural hub of different cultures, including Chinese culture. So the Hong Kong Palace Museum is not only just a museum of Chinese artifacts. It is a cultural museum, as its Chinese name, 香港故宮文化博物館, suggests. So we look forward to hosting international exhibitions as well as artifacts from the precious collections of Beijing's Palace Museum. And in some of the special exhibitions, we have juxtaposed the modern as well as the ancient, and East and West to make good the East meets West theme of international cultural exchange.
Apart from the Hong Kong Palace Museum, how can the local arts and cultural sector contribute to telling the world the good Hong Kong stories?
With the West Kowloon Cultural District, we see a number of venues having been up and running, and they include a Sichu Center, which is mainly for Chinese operatic forms, and then we have Free Space, which is a black box theater where imagination can run wild with a theater, music, and all sorts of movements like dance performances. And West Kowloon offers all these opportunities, plus the M+ Museum and the Hong Kong Palace Museum now. West Kowloon is the place for artists and audience to enjoy the essence of East meeting the West.
What are the unique attractions of Hong Kong that can attract and retain more international arts and cultural practitioners to come to Hong Kong?
We have two languages as our official languages. So not only have the pool of talents who are Chinese speaking, we also have access to all the English speaking pool of talents. And Hong Kong has been excellent in accepting and embracing overseas talents as well as Chinese talents from the mainland, even from Taiwan, and also, of course, local talents itself is a mix because Hong Kong is such a metropolitan city. We have all these leading artists in Hong Kong working with Hong Kong people and overseas artists and bringing great performances and curating excellent exhibitions in Hong Kong.
So I'm very happy to see that you are confident that Hong Kong will continue to be able to attract these talents. How do you see the developments of the art and culture scene in Hong Kong?
Rather than predicting which way it will go, I would very much like to see a better ecosystem being developed of arts and culture practitioners so that they can grow and flourish within this ecosystem. The second point is that obviously the corporations, the private corporations in Hong Kong really will have to step up. We've just seen a very good example of companies stepping up in sponsorship of the arts, haven't we? There was this Symphony Under the Stars, which was staged outside the Tamar, and it was quite spectacular. But even more spectacular is, of course, the orchestra itself. And I think Swire has done an excellent job in bringing free music for all of Hong Kong to enjoy. And I think that's a very good example of how corporations can participate.
It's wonderful to see everyone out again, especially in the open air.
The atmosphere was unbelievable.
What do you say to people who comments that, oh, Hong Kong is a cultural desert and you cannot really have good business in the arts and cultural sector in Hong Kong? What do you say to those naysayers?
Hong Kong is anything but a cultural desert. We see Hong Kong bringing up a world-class orchestra, world-class performances in ballet, international award-winning art groups. Our performing arts school is one of the best, if not the best in the region, where students from across the region come to study. I've seen recent musicals, for example, and these are musical performances put together by the younger generation. They obviously have all the musical influences of the West, but its language is Chinese, its dialect is Cantonese, and its artistical expressions are a mixture of West and the East.
Actually, your interest in intellectual property law is actually related to your passion in music. Maybe you can explain that to us.
When I was trying to find an area of interest as a law student, it became natural to think of anything that relates to music, because that is so part of my life at the time. And I became very interested in the commercial exploitation of music and what sort of rights can be born of a musical work, and how do you exploit it, and how can other people share the music with or without having to sort of license the use of the music.
So Winnie, apart from music, I know you're also interested in classical Chinese literature, arts, and history. How does art and culture influence your personal philosophy?
My mother was a teacher, my late mother. She has a lifelong passion pursuing the classics, poems and verses, and she also practices calligraphy. So I think that is a very strong influence on my part, particularly when I was young. And so I had this deep interest in the language to start with. I believe that art and culture is inseparable from the language. Once you have an interest in the language, then you would become interested in the history of the people who use the language. And then art and culture is just part and parcel of that history.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that wonderful story. I think it's coming from a special place in your heart and talking about history, talking about how your mother has helped shape who you are today. Thank you for that, Winnie.
Thank you.
So Winnie, many of us know that you are a well-recognized intellectual property law expert. Is your experience as a senior lawyer in those areas relevant to your public roles, right? Especially in a role like chairmanship of the Hong Kong Palace Museum?
The value of our service lies in our judgment of situations, of facts and circumstances, and our ability to apply the law to the facts and circumstances. I think in my job as, for example, the chair of the Communications Authority, and now and subsequently chairing the Performing Arts Committee in the West Kowloon Cultural District, and now as the chair of the Hong Kong Palace Museum, I find that this judgment is often called upon, and I'll have to be able to grasp the situation and be able to prioritize issues and see and tell the important from the unimportant, and the more urgent from the less urgent, and be able to exercise my judgment and exert an appropriate amount of leadership without meddling into management, for example. And all these are important in performing public roles, I think.
Winnie, in terms of for our younger viewers out there, what would be advice that you would give to the next generation? What would be your words of wisdom?
I find grit is a very important quality, perseverance. And I think it is very important for young people to know right from the start that the road in front of them, the path in front of them is not going to be all flat and easy. The next is open-mindedness. It is about not limiting your own opportunities in life. And another quality is gratefulness. I think gratefulness is a mindset and help you have hope for what you aspire to have. Another piece of advice I would often give to young people is self-reliance. You will find that you are the best help to yourself.
Thank you, Winnie. We'll be right back after this short break. Welcome back to Friday Beyond Spotlights. We have with us today Ms. Winnie Tam, a leading lawyer and a leader in public service. She grew up in an environment where Western music and Chinese literature and art were part of her daily life. Among the many roles in public service, past and present, Winnie finds her chairmanship of the Hong Kong Palace Museum one of the most exciting and challenging. Who is Winnie Tam behind the spotlights? Who or what defining moments in her life shaped her into who she is today? Will we get to learn her life motto or life ambitions? In this show and tell segment, we shall go behind and beyond the glaring spotlights as our special guest today, Winnie Tam, shows us an item that has special meaning in shaping her into who she is today, with fiercely strong lion rock can-do spirit. And perhaps we will get to journey back in time with Winnie to experience some special moments and see how certain moments might have shaped her and in turn may shape us. Winnie, what item would you like to share with us today?
I would like to share an iambic verse or song qi, which my mother has written for me. She composed this as a piece of calligraphy. And this is the iambic verse of a Song dynasty poet called Sun Heizat. And he was going through difficult times in his career and wasn't, getting the trust of the emperor at the time. And he is known to have written this poem or iambic verse. And I picked this verse because my mother, in those years, her eyesight was still healthy, and she practiced calligraphy quite a lot. And on a particular occasion in 1988, I still remember, she asked me to pick a verse that I like, pick a poem that I like, and she would write up this in a scene mean, like a fan-shaped
And
paper.
this is a very traditional form of calligraphy.
Yes. And so I picked what I thought was my favorite verse at the time, and I thought of this verse, which I have learned since I was a child. And then she wrote it up, and then I was told to pick the little seals because she has this collection of seals, and it all has her name in it. And this one is my favorite. This is a little dragon, which I liked as a child because this shape is very cute. And then 允之愛女清賞, that's my name, meaning for the appreciation of
dedicated to you as a gift.
For my beloved daughter, my name. I love this piece very much because it reminds me of a moment between my mother and I where we communicated in art and literature. it was very precious to have that memory of a time after I started working on my legal career. And she was inviting me to, name a verse, and she would write it up for me. And then she gave me this beautiful piece, which I have treasured ever since. So this brings back a lot of memories. I mean, we were not from a rich and privileged family at all, as my mother was a teacher, and she was by then retired. But it never stopped her from pursuing art and culture. The realities of life never made her feel that this kind of thing is not for me. It was so important for her, she never stopped pursuing it. And that is the important message that we would very much like people in Hong Kong to share, because art and culture is for everybody, and everybody finds enjoyment, and everybody can find enjoyment and a part of himself or herself in art and culture.
Very similar to, I guess, the Hong Kong Palace Museum, where we really welcome all walks of life to come in, to take a moment, and really to enjoy the wonderful artwork. Thank you, Winnie, for sharing that with us.
Thank you.
So, Winnie, how did your mother inspire your interest in tradition or classical Chinese literature or calligraphy?
When I was very young, like sort of 5 or 6, of course, I didn't understand the depth of these things. So I think she started off by making me recite poems like Tong Si. So if I recite a very long poem and I do it easily, then she would give me a coin or something, and then I can go and buy something to read. Like in those days, we have these little comics like Yi Tong Lok Yun. And those are local comic books. And obviously with that recitation of poems, my Chinese became very good. And that made me, that gave me a sense of identity, makes me feel proud of myself. And I get, praises from teachers. And I was lucky to have my parent and my father was actually very good in Chinese as well. So, and he also can write calligraphy very, very well. He's a very talented man, although he didn't need to practice a lot. So I was lucky to have parents who gave me guidance and inspired me in that regard. And I think I still remember the days of reciting very long poems like the Chang Han Go, the song of the everlasting lament, which was really long, and I got $1 out of it because of my ability to recite it. So that was still something that is etched in my memory.
So Winnie, as we reflect on the past, introspectively look at how Hong Kong and the world is today, and perhaps gaze into the future, what's installed for us?
The future will depend on all of us working together, and even to the utmost, to promote dialogues between human beings, between nations, between governments, or between sectors of different interests. I believe it is so important for us to find common grounds rather than only focus on differences, and also to have as our goal doing things for the common good rather than for promoting self-interest.
Thank you, Winnie. Now, Winnie, we've come to the fun part, the fun segment of our show, the rapid fire questions, where we get up close and personal with you. Are you ready?
Yes, okay, fire away.
So what's your favorite food?
Double-boiled Chinese soup.
What was your first job?
I mocked test papers of my mother's class of students for 50 cents, the whole class.
What dish do you cook best?
Clay pot rice.
Sports and exercise, what's your favorite sport?
Downhill skiing.
What was the last book you read?
Tales of the Forbidden City.
Who's the person you most admire?
My retiring helper, Sally.
Where would you bring new visitors to Hong Kong?
West Kowloon Cultural District.
What's your hidden talent?
I can sew and I can do embroidery.
What other talents you wish you have?
I wish I could swim like Chauvin Rohi.
What's one word that you would use to describe yourself?
Direct,
What's your favorite music?
Russian.
What is your proudest moment?
When my daughter completed 2 graduate degrees, I was proud of her.
What's the nicest thing someone has said to you?
When a colleague said how much she appreciated my doing something for someone else,
What's the latest thing you've searched online?
I believe I searched kinetic energy for some reason.
What would be the title of your autobiography?
Untitled. I don't think I'll ever write one for myself.
What are the qualities you most admire about your parents?
Oh, for my late father, his charisma, and for my late mother, her lifelong pursuit for learning and scholarly virtues.
What is your biggest fear?
I've always feared disappointing people who have trusted me.
What advice would you give your younger self?
Get more sleep,
What legacy do you wish to leave behind?
a sense of service.
How will Hong Kong look in 5 years?
It will look better than ever.
Thank you, Winnie. Winnie, can you share with us your well wishes for Hong Kong?
I wish Hong Kong will bounce back, as it has always done before, from the trials and tribulations of the past few years, and emerge even stronger, more confident, and more sure of its role as an international cultural exchange hub of China and the world.
Thank you, Winnie.
Thank you, Patrick.
Thank you for joining us on Friday Beyond Spotlights. I'm your host, Patrick Tsang, signing off. See you next time.
Patrick, let me show you one of my favorite pieces in the museum. It is
Wonderful.
remarkable. This is a scroll of paintings, which is a record of what the emperor has been receiving by way of tributaries coming to pay tributes to him. Now you will see that this is a record of people in different types of costumes. It shows that the emperor, while the country was still adopting a closed-door policy, he was so interested in understanding outside culture, and he actually wanted a record depicting different people's livelihoods in different costumes and a record of where they have come from. And I find that fascinating.
Thank you, Winnie. That's wonderful. Makes me want to come back and look at all the other works at the wonderful Hong Kong Palace Museum.
Please do.